right, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to have my great friend Shannon here. Thanks for joining, Shannon.
Thanks for having me on.
We're going to be so natural. It's going to be so fun. As I continue my series on having some great conversations with some women that I really look up to that are in my life, just kind of opening up the conversation about money, I thought of Shannon, and she so graciously accepted to be on today. And really what I want to do is just have a conversation. We've known each other for a very, very long time. We were actually just doing the math. I was 9 years old when I met her. We grew up in the dance world together. So it's been a crazy ride. And so I think the math is 29 years we've known each other, which there's not a lot of relationships in life that you know people that long outside of your family. So it's been an amazing friendship, and we've had some great times. And I just wanted to kind of have a conversation about your life. And I want to kind of kick it off with this conversation, like I said, about money, and specifically females with money. And I've already mentioned it a ton of times about how a lot of women in my life are intimidated by money. It's kind of sort of not okay to be discussing money or learning about it. Sometimes we don't want to ask people because we're, like I say, intimidated or fearful. And these conversations just seem to not happen enough. And so I'm trying to bring light to it. So I just want to kind of kick it off by getting the audience to really learn a little bit more about you and sort of how you were raised to think, to act, to believe about money.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
So I feel like growing up, we always kind of seemed to have enough money to do the things that we needed to do. I don't feel like I was ever told by my parents, we can't afford that, or you can't have this, or you can't have that. But we lived in a little bungalow in Silver Springs, and we didn't, I don't think looking back that we lived affluently or anything, but it just always seemed like that we could do the things that we wanted to do. And I was always provided for. I remember having my first bank account at TD Bank, and I would take my money down there, and maybe it was $5, and then I'd want to go to Max, and I'd ask if I could take out 25 cents to go to Max. And they'd kind of look at me weird, but sometimes they would let me have my 25 cents. And so, that was kind of my earlier experience with money. And growing up, I would say my parents made different choices with their housing and stuff like that. Like we owned a house, and then my dad kind of went through a process where he sold his house, he sold his company, did a whole bunch of things, and then we just started renting as a family. So we rented for so many years. I don't know if that was maybe a good choice or bad choice, but it certainly has affected my choices now as an adult. And then, they had a savings account or some sort of money savings account that they had done for my brother and I, so that when we graduated, we had money to go to university. And depending on the number of years you went to university, that's how much money you got. And so I had that, but I always had, odd jobs. I babysat a lot. So I always felt like I could ask them for money, but I also had my own, which always felt good to me as a teenager to know that I had my own money that I earned doing smaller jobs. But I was never expected to have a job either. It was just, I got this babysitting job, or somebody asked me to teach dance. And so I liked working, but it was never an expectation. Like a lot of my friends had to have a job. They had to have their own money. If they wanted things, they had to pay for it themselves. And then I got married really young. So I went from living with my parents to moving in with my fiance a month before we got married.
Wow.
So we rented our first place, and I think at that point I was a dental assistant. I had just sort of graduated from school. And so all of our money kind of went into this one bank account. And I actually think I remember that my money that I earned from dental assisting paid for our rent and like things like that. And to be honest, now that I'm thinking about this, it's a long time ago, but I don't know what the rest of the money did. I don't know. I just remember if I had the money that could cover this and that, then that was great. And he was earning his own money. Maybe he was starting a business, that kind of thing. Like, I just, to be honest, I don't know where that money went. And so we moved a little bit. We were living in Vancouver. We were living in Toronto, and then we moved back to Calgary. And yeah, I think the money just went to a joint bank account, and there was always money there,
Right.
and that sort of thing. So I never really asked like, oh, can we afford this rent? It was just, this is where we're living, or this is where we're going to live, things like that. So everything was fine. We had kids. We continued on. We bought a really nice house. I remember just saying, well, can we afford that? And he'd say, yeah, we can. I'm like, okay, no big deal. And then
I just want to you would say that, because my experience being in finance, like it's been over a decade, 15 years actually. I always find one is more involved in the finances than the other. So would you say you were just more not as involved, and your husband was kind of managing your finances?
For sure. I think I paid the Visa bill from the joint bank account, but I don't know how the money got there. And I know that's not all the money we had, but I don't know where it was. I don't know where it was. Yeah. So then in my 30s, I got divorced.
No one can believe you're 30 right now. Everyone just said, what?
What? In her 30s? Like what?
You look so young. Okay.
Yeah. So it was in my mid 30s. And so all of a sudden, at that point, I kind of had some part-time jobs. I was teaching dance. I was doing things like that, but I didn't have a career because I had kind of given that up to raise our family. And so dental assisting kind of went to the side. Anything that I would have been interested in just went to the side. And I was happy to do that. I was so happy. I just wanted to be a mom, and we could afford everything. And I kind of just knew I could go back to something later once the kids got older. But it was just right before the kids were kind of going into school full time when we got divorced. So now I was left with this, like, now what do I do? What do I do with anything? And I didn't even really understand. I remember seeing our bank account all of a sudden in the negative, like negative numbers. And I was like, why is it negative? Oh, well, I kind of got answers like, oh, well, I've just moved money around, but I didn't know to where. So anyhow, that divorce is divorce. Lots of people go through it, but in the end, then now I'm forced with, I have to get a house, which we kind of did together during the divorce. And then there was the settlement, and I was like, what do I do with this money?
Right.
And I remember I had gone to like some of the bigger money financing places. I don't even remember what would you call them?
Firms.
Firms. I went and sat in a room with a man in a suit, and he had lots of charts on his walls and lots of fancy terms. And he's like, well, we'll take the money and we'll put it here and here and here and there, and then this and this and that. And I was like, okay. And then I don't even actually remember how you and I met up, but we did somehow.
Yeah.
He said, meet me at the Purple Perk. And I'm like, okay. And so I went and met you, and you just started telling me about what you did. And I was like, oh, I need that person. I need that person to help me with my money and at least tell me like different ideas of what I could do with it other than the man in the suit in the office with the charts.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of began, where I went, oh, I didn't know I had so many options, or I didn't know that there was different places I could put it, and those places weren't all the same. Like it was good to invest some of it into my home, but it was good to invest some of it into this type of savings or that type of savings. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And I think I even went to one of your company's like meetings where you just talk to people about that. And that was probably the first time that I learned about simple investing things like TFSA, or I learned all these terms, and so that was really helpful to me.
That's great. And you know what, that's such great feedback. And the example of the guy in the suit, I mean, the amount of times that I've heard that, and I'm so glad you said that, because I think so many people in general, but let's just talk women right now, I think a lot of times that's where it gets intimidating, honestly, because when people think of finance, they think, I used to think, at least when I started when I was 22, I was like, whoa, I know nothing about money. And whoa, that's like a really fancy, rich, intimidating industry. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you say the suit guy with all the, complicated charts and the complicated, we got to dumb it down for people. And when I first learned just the basics and like the simple information, I'm like, okay, I get it now. I get it, because you're really good in the industry you're in. I'm really good in the industry I'm in. But if my client cannot understand what I'm explaining, there's a problem.
Well, and that's exactly what you did. I remember we sat down at my kitchen table, and it didn't matter. I don't feel like it would have mattered if I told you I had $2 or $200,000 or $2 million.
Yeah.
You just kind of broke it all down, said, okay, here's some plans. And I think you even had a couple of different plans. And you said, we're going to put this money here. We're going to put this money here. You worked out all those things, told me the important things. And I could actually see how I was going to survive this on my own. Because before then, everybody had just been telling me how it's going to work out. Or, when I was married, it was just always did. Yeah. But to just sit down at the kitchen table and you to just talk to me like woman to woman and just say, okay, this is what you've got. So this is how this is going to work. And kind of made me feel like it's going to be okay. Right.
Right. Yeah. In a time of so much uncertainty and there's so much change in your world, that's the last thing that you want to sort of have weighing on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So would you say that, obviously it's kind of a no-brainer, but would you say having someone that you can trust is important?
Yes, I absolutely trusted you. And it's kind of a weird trust because we knew each other from before. Like there's a bit of an age difference, so maybe we weren't always hanging out together, but there was just something about, I don't know if it's because we knew each other, I'm not sure, but I trusted what you were telling me. I trusted that you were making the best decisions for my money and how much I had and the best way for me to feel safe, not only now, but years into the future too. And I still do. Like, I think we're 12 years in and I still feel like safe. I feel like, okay, I know it was taken care of. I know I have that money there. And sometimes I call you and say, remind me where this is or where that is. And what did I do with it?
Money.
Yeah. And just remind me because sometimes you forget, but you have it all written down, you know where it is, you can tell me where it is. And I just like that I can count on you to call you and say, hey, what did I do with this? Or where is this at? Or am I still on the right track when we have our yearly meetings and you sit down with me and we say, okay, this is this and this. And in my experience, like I've never looked back on it. Like I'm so happy I went with that choice of getting your help to get through this.
Aw, thanks, Shannon. That means a lot. And you know what? This obviously isn't to be, Melissa's so great. This is just to bring awareness to the fact that, professionals are there for a reason, right? It's no different than if you go to sell your house, you get a real estate agent because they know about markets. They know how to sell a home. They're professionals in their industry. You go to a dentist. I didn't know you were a dental hygienist. That's crazy. Assistant. I just learned something new about you tonight. But, you go to a dentist, obviously, because they're the professionals. You go to professionals because they know what they're doing. But then when you add in that level of trust and you add in the level of simplicity, I think that's the game changer. And then, you mentioned yearly review, and I just want to kind of bring that awareness because I think when working with a financial advisor, a lot of times the knock on the industry and just my experience of what I've seen is that a lot of people go after the very high net worth clients because that's where the bigger transactions are happening. And you're exactly right. If you would have had $20 or $100,000 or it doesn't matter because a client's a client. Helping someone is helping someone. And I get passionate about that because I look at even my parents. They had an advisor before me, before I started in the industry. The guy had 2,500 clients.
That's a lot.
Like, how do you have an annual review like we do and have that conversation, that trust and the text, like full communication when you have that many clients? And so it's just, that's the challenge, I think, with the industry, is that people get too transaction based. And so then we start to lose faith in people actually doing the right thing, having the trust, you know, the simplicity of it and all that. So I'm so happy to hear that. That's amazing. So how would you say, I mean, you kind of mentioned some of the benefits, but just to kind of summarize it all, obviously it sounds like you were raised in an environment where it wasn't unheard of to talk about money. You were raised in a, you know, great environment. It wasn't kind of, you know, shunned to speak about it. Your parents did a great job saving money. You know, so you had a great childhood, and then got married, sort of sat back on the finances. Your husband handled it all. And then you kind of, so how would you say, what would you say the main benefits from becoming a divorcee and then having to kind of handle your own finances? What do you think the or not even benefits, what have you learned? What would be like the main things you've learned?
Yeah. I would say that I've learned how to save money and the importance of saving money and you know, tucking that away for just in case kind of day.
Yeah.
That was big for me. I've obviously learned about the different avenues of where you can save money and the benefits of saving it in this area rather than that area. Some of the things that we talked about and that I got into, like life insurance, things like that I just hadn't really thought of before, or critical illness insurance and the importance of that, and you know, just the ins and outs of that, because it wasn't, I just thought it was black and white, but like what you've taught me is that like you can kind of invest into those kind of things, and they're things that you can pass on to your children or whoever you choose to in the future too, right? So I think learning the options is one of the biggest things that I learned, that it's not just about a chart and about investing in one thing, that there's lots of different options, and that you can use all of those options with your savings and with your daily life too.
I love it. Yeah. I usually refer to that as diversification, making sure that we're kind of spread out, because a lot of people are just invested in like one asset class, whether it be RSPs or, you know, what have you. So I love it. I feel like I've maybe taught you something.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I appreciate it. And I just think so many women out there, whether married or divorced or whatever the case, single, I just think the education, it needs to happen. We need to learn more and kind of step into it instead of stepping away and being fearful of the education.
Well, and money is personal. And I feel like the experience with you and your company has personalized it for me. Where it might be different for a different client, but like you personalized the experience for me rather than just made me feel like I was part of a big pool of people who is finding a way to keep their money safe. So
wow, that means so much. I feel like this is like a testimonial. You're so sweet. Thank you for the kind words. And you know, I trust that this brought value to women out there, even men, but women especially, who I just want to spread awareness, and I just want to kind of open up the conversation. So thank you so much, Shannon, for opening up and telling your story and kind of your before and after and how your life has changed. And I appreciate working with you and being friends with you. And I look forward to many more decades together. So
I appreciate you too.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So don't forget to like and share with all the women that you know in your life. So many people need to hear this, and definitely subscribe, and we'll see you next time.